Hello, I'm Darren Hardy, entrepreneur mentor and publisher of Success Magazine, and I want to welcome you to Insane Productivity. This is a 12-part series on how to achieve extreme levels of personal productivity. This is where you'll learn to produce insane results, insanely fast, sanely. Welcome to Module 8. Okay, we're about to get into the nitty-gritty of achieving a high-performance life. This is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. We are now going to tackle the execution strategies. Being an obsessed overachiever addict most of my life, I have studied how to get more done in less time all my life. It is what I try to pick up each time I meet a superachiever. How do they do it? What are their strategies, their behaviors, their daily methods of operation, etc.? I can tell you what I have learned the past 6 years in particular has revolutionized my own life. And guess what? Most of what we think are the keys to superachievers' success is typically exactly the opposite. Well, it is in this session that I will begin to take you through many of the insights on how to move from an overwhelmed, overscheduled, overstressed, overworking overachiever to the stunningly successful superachiever you are capable of becoming with the right strategies. Let's listen in to the summit now. Living in high performance, understanding and mastering your success vitals. Here's where we start getting into the execution system. Understanding and mastering your success vitals of strategic priority. Okay, see, if you get hit in the head with a baseball bat, you get your arm severed, or you go into the emergency room because you got the flu, the first thing that they do is check your vital signs. I mean, even if blood's squirting out your arm, they're still trying to check your vital signs, right? Because if your vital signs are off, then they might lose you altogether, let alone what's squirting out your arm. So they got to figure out what's happening with your vital signs, because the vital signs will basically tell them the rest of the story. And if they can stabilize your vital signs, then they can start working on the extremity issues. Right, my physician friend? Yes. Hence the name Vital. Life provides clues, right? You have to figure out what your vital signs are for your business, for your life. Because what happens is you get caught up in all the extremity issues, all these symptoms, and it looks perplexing and you don't know what's going on. Let me help you hone in on your vital signs of success, of strategic productivity. And that's what we're going to do here. To become a superachiever, you have to find and then focus on your vital few. See, it's better to be world class at a few things than mediocre at many. What happens is we're trying to do so much that we end up mediocre at many things and never get world class at anything. And if you really do want to become a superachiever, you really want to be recognized as doing great work or as affecting humanity, like some of these people have, achieve great heights, be well known in history, you'll notice that they have become world class at maybe one thing. Some 2 or 3 at max. And if you read the biographies of these people, they're rather mediocre in the rest of their life. Some of them are kind of not great at all in the rest of their life. But still, history records them because they have become world class in one thing. And so what happens, most of us end up trying to do everything, and we're mediocre at it all, and we're never world class at anything. What are you going to be world class at? The best at? The best in your industry, the best in your marketplace, or the best in the world at? What are you going to be world class at? That's what you want to figure out and identify. That's going to make you an overachiever. It's going to stretch your potential. It's going to help you become all that you are capable of becoming. You're going to start living to your potential when you direct all of that talent and passion to the one thing that you figure matters the most to you. As Landon mentioned to you, I have these high-performance forums where CEOs come in, and then we've got a graduate program we call the HPF Elite. So a lot of these guys were coming in for this elite program at the Grand Del Mar, and a few of them came in early so that we could play a round of golf on that spectacular course. And I tee off first, and I hit this shot, wham! And I turn to the guys and I say, gentlemen, let me just explain something here to you. Let me explain why entrepreneurs slash super achievers suck at golf. And the reason is you have to figure out what you're going to spend and focus your time and energy on. And then you've got to figure out what you're going to give up in order for you to spend your time and energy focusing on that thing. So gentlemen, I have given up being great at golf. Just forewarning you, okay? I've also given up being great at tennis. I'm rather mediocre in hiking and biking. I'm rather mediocre in surfing. I'm rather mediocre in skiing. I suck at cooking. I suck at mechanics. I suck at gardening. There's a lot of things that I suck really hard at. I don't know what new TV programs are coming on. I don't even recognize the names of the sitcoms. I don't know what's going on in the news. I don't know what great new artist bands are. I have no idea what a lot of the new tech gadgets and whiz-bang things are. There's a lot that I have given up so that I can take that bandwidth, that life force, that energy, that attention, that focus, and become world-class at a few things. And that's allowed me to propel my success far and above beyond most people in that category because, most importantly, I figured out what I was willing to give up. And I'm okay with it. I'm okay with going out on the golf course and sucking. I'm okay with that, right? And that has released me to focus on the areas I want to be great at. The question for you is, what are you going to give up to get what you really want? Write down a couple, 3 things that come to mind real fast. Maybe it's something that you're watching. Maybe it's Breaking Bad. Yeah, maybe it's paying attention to the politics. Maybe it's a particular hobby, or maybe whatever. Just figure out what it is you're going to give up so that you can then take that bandwidth and that resource time and focus on the thing you want to be world-class at. Just a few things. Write it down real quick. All right, and then I want to show you how to create radical focus. I mean, just laser-like focus, because ultimately, this is going to determine whether you can keep on the path of strategic productivity to become a super achiever. It requires radical focus. So this is what life looks like for most people. If you look at this, it's hard to even focus your eyes on any one thing, because everything around it is competing for your eye, for your attention. And this is the way life looks to most people, is this constant pull of visual distortion. And so you don't even know where to look and where to focus. You have no idea what's vital in this grid at all. So what I want to help you do is to figure out the few in that myriad of things that are vital. The most important out of that entire matrix of competing distractions and options and choices available to you. And then I want to help gray out everything else. And if you can do that, that's how you have radical focus. Radical focus is not about eye power, it's about choice power. Being able to see what's vital and then gray everything else out. Now you can see and stay focused on those few things. I want to help you identify your vital few functions, your vital few priorities, your vital few improvements, and your vital few metrics. Those are ultimately going to hone you in on what matters the most in each of those areas. So let's start out with vital functions. How do you identify your vital functions? The things, of all the things that you do all day, every day, inside your career, inside your business, inside your life, which ones are vital? So we know that some of the greatest achievers, the ones that have built legendary resumes of achievement, end up being, it's almost every single time, the ones that have just focused on the most basic fundamentals of success. So Vince Lombardi, quote, would say, the key to winning is to be brilliant at the basics. He would train and develop his team to be so brilliant at the basics that the opposing team would know exactly what play they were going to run. And they still wouldn't be able to stop it because the Packers were so great at the basics. That's the way you want to be. John Wooden, another legendary coach. 10 NCAA championships out of 12 years. A record that will probably never be broken, ever. An amazing leader. And here's how he started every season. They just won the NCAA championship. His team's coming back. First day of practice, he holds an hour-and-a-half seminar on how to put on your socks and tie your shoes. Take them off. Fix your sock. Fix it like this. Here's how you put it on. Get it over the toes. Start to get it over the ankle. Get it up and then they take them off, and they do that for an hour and a half. To make, I think, 2 points. One is, I don't care if you were NCAA champions. We're starting this new season right back down at the basics. So basic, it's right when you put on your socks and shoes. And the second point was, he said, look, I don't care how talented you are. If you're out on the court and you get a blister, they will beat you, regardless of your talent. So we've got to take care of the basics first. And that's when it comes to finding your vital few functions as well. We're going right back to the beginning. Dr. Oz, one of the most amazing human beings on the planet. Love this guy. Spend a lot of time with him now. And the first time I met him, I said, how do you do this? Because the guy still does 200 open heart surgeries a year. He has a 5-day, 1-hour Emmy Award-winning TV show. Do you know what the demands are for that? Unbelievable. He has a whole series of best-selling books. He's on the cover of every magazine known to man. And he has 2 huge nonprofit organizations that require an enormous amount of time and energy as well. He's pulling off all of this with grace and ease. And when you're around him, he's relaxed, he's humble, he's a wonderful human being. So I asked him, how? Because I've got like a fraction of what you've got going on, and I'm strung out. How do you pull all this off? And he said, look, I figured out that every endeavor that you do has a vital few functions. And all you got to do is figure out what those vital few functions are and then get excellent at them. He said, look, when I do open heart surgery, I don't go in there and clean the room and clean the instruments. I don't even open up the body cavity. I don't even do, there's about 20 procedures that happen before I even come into the room. And then there are a few procedures that I do that make the biggest difference to the whole procedure, mind you, that I have to be the best in the world at. I come in, I perform those few procedures, and then I leave. And the rest of the group closes the body cavity, does the rest of the work. He says, same thing on a TV show. There's a few vital functions that I have to be the best at. I have to be prepared, ready to deliver. I don't go in and do the lighting and the staging and all the rest of that. I come in, I deliver those few vital functions, and then I leave. Same thing with writing a book, same thing with running a charity organization, same thing with building a team. He said the key is you got to figure out what the few vital functions are, and then you got to go about the business of becoming world-class at those few functions. There it is. There it is. The revealment of the secret about how you possibly can get it all done is to figure out what the vital few are, don't get caught up in the rest of it, and be world-class at those few things. When I was in real estate, I'll give you an example. There are 5,000 things that you can get caught up doing and even call it productive. Okay, for those of you that are familiar with real estate, stupid things like checking on the septic tank history, reviewing the utility bills, doing the aging property inspection, going get the permit report from the city, send disclosures, input the listing in the MLS, checking the sign installation, meet with the client to review reports, send disclosures, verify the property report. All these things seem like, legitimate things that you need to do. However, there were only a few things that I did as the lead that mattered, that when I did them, we got paid, that only I could do. I couldn't delegate to do it. Nobody on the staff could do it. There were a few things that I had to do, and when I did it, we advanced the enterprise. And those 3 things were pitching a listing, negotiating a contract, and prospecting. These were my vital few functions. And so I built a team that did everything else so that I could try to spend most of my time doing those vital few functions. So when I got clear about this, I went out and actually bought a stopwatch. and I wore it around my neck. And I turned it on every time I was doing one of those 3 functions. So the first day that I did this, I wanted to set the bar really high. And I was kind of crazy back then, but it was between I was 20 and 23. And so I was going to put in a 16-hour day. I was just going to crush it. I was going to work like a savage beast just to get the number as high as I possibly could, right? So that I had to go every day thereafter to try to meet that number. So I would go up the driveway, knock on the door, knock, knock, knock. Door opens, I turn it on. Do you plan on buying or selling a house in the next 6 months? Talk, talk, talk. Door closes, turn it off. Down the driveway, up the next driveway. Knock, knock, knock. Open the door. On, talk, close, off. Go home. Sit there and cold call, right? Ring, ring, ring. Phone answers. Talk, talk, talk. Phone off. It's off, right? And I did this throughout the whole day. First day that I did it, wanting to set the bar real high. Guess how much time, because I wouldn't allow myself to look at it until the end of the day, and it's finally that time to do the big reveal. Guess how much time that first day I had accumulated on the stopwatch? 2 hours, 30 minutes, 3 hours, 20, 19 minutes and 54 seconds. I put in a 16-hour day. The people who worked in the office, if you asked them, was he productive for 16 hours? Like, oh yeah, he was totally productive. That guy's crazy, right? 19 minutes and 54 seconds. And when I realized that, I became obsessed with it, right? So going from 20 minutes to 40 minutes was a Herculean effort. The first time I got it up to an hour, I threw an office-wide party. 2 hours was crushing. I think in a 4-year career, I ended up getting it up to 4 hours, maybe 12 times. Which means that in a 4-year career, I worked a half day 12 times. When you figure out what your vital few functions are, and you really track the time that you are in the zone of doing that function, and you track it, you will be shocked how little time you are actually doing anything that matters. And if all you do is go about increasing that number, it'll change your world. It'll change your outcome because you are finally doing your vital function. So what are your few vital functions? What comes to mind right now? What are your vital functions? Just write them down. See what comes to mind right now. What are your vital functions? All right, so you're probably asking yourself the question, man, there's a lot of things I got to do. How do I only do my vital functions? Was that in your head? All right, let me help you with that. Here we go. First thing you need to do is to understand your value. Understand your worth. Determine your hourly rate. And how you do that is you take your income goal and you divide it by 2,000, because on average you work about 2,000 hours a year. So your income goal divided by 2,000 ends up giving you your hourly rate. So if you want to make $100,000 a year, your hourly rate is $50 an hour. If you want to make $250,000 a year, your hourly rate is $125 an hour. And every hour you don't produce $125 worth of value, you lose. Here's what it's like. Imagine you woke up on January 1 and somebody deposited $250,000 in your bank. And then every hour throughout the year, during your work hours, that you did not output $125 worth of value comes off the top. And people who have a goal of making $250,000 a year end up on December 31st and they go, how did I only make 80 grand? I worked so hard and so long all year. The reason is you did low value work. That's it. You did not produce $125 an hour work. You want to make $1 million a year, your time is worth $500 an hour. I get people all the time that says, I just want 10 minutes of your time. I just want 10 minutes of your time. And I say, send me $500. I know that sounds crass and rude, but that's what my time is worth. $500, 10 minutes, $500, fine. But if not, I cannot afford to give you 10 minutes. because it comes right off the top from the goal that I've got set about what my time value is worth. Same thing for you. Somebody catches you in the hall, takes 10 minutes, you take 15 minutes too long for lunch, you end up on one YouTube video and you end up in a vortex of 8 later, 22 minutes later. You literally just take $20 bills out of your wallet and just light them on fire. Just light them on fire. You have just spent money. I know that you don't think you spend any money because it's just your time. What? That's all you have. That's all you have is time. Do you realize from the moment you're born, your life is sands in an hourglass. You are losing life every second of the day. The only thing you have in life is time. Why would you possibly waste it? And when it comes to economics, take your income goal, divide it by your work hours, and that's the output you got to create in which to meet that goal. So just like a teacher says, hey, it's the first day of school. Everybody's got an A. And the only thing you need to do is keep it. That's all you got to do, just keep it. Which means that you just need to produce A-level work from here. Don't diminish your A. Don't bring me B and C work. Don't lose it. You've got it. You got the A. January 1, you've got your income goal. And every hour you don't put out, your value per hour comes off the top. So what's your income goal? Write it down. Do a little quick division by 2,000. Figure out what your hourly rate is. It will change the things that you say yes to if you understand how much your time has to be worth, and then how you are misappropriating that value. They're like, I don't have my phone, I can't calculate this. I know, I could hear you. So, just for some interest perspective, you don't even have what is the average lifespan of 79 years of age, assuming you don't get hit by a bus, which is 692,000 hours. Everybody goes, oh, that seems like a lot of time. You don't actually have that amount of time because you spend 230,000 of it sleeping. You spend 230,000 of it basically unconscious and brain dead. So you're only left with 461,000. Then when you consider the time that you spent in school, which you hated the whole time anyway, you're left with 430,000. The number of hours you spend dressing, take that off the top. The number of hours you spend on the toilet. Do you realize you spend 13,000 hours of your life on the toilet? 52,000 hours eating, 43,000 hours waiting in line, 35,000 hours with housework, 8,000 hours looking for misplaced possessions, 35,000 hours sick. When you take those all off the top, you're left with 224,000 hours. Essentially, you only have 25 years of life. That's it. You only have 307 months. You only have 9,340 days. So I want to suggest to you how you can get some of that time back. Those are the real statistics, but how to get some of that back. So if you stop doing housework, that is low value work for your value in the marketplace. Stop doing it. Dude, don't do your housework unless you find joy in it. You love it. That's your meditation. So to some people it is. It's cool. Most people it's awful. Stop doing it. Okay? Sick. If you just keep yourself healthy, you don't have to lose those 35,000 hours being sick. I can't even remember the last time I was sick. I really can't. So, because I keep myself healthy. So you can get those hours back. It's like adding years to your life. Facebook, 13,000 hours. You can get that back if you just cut it out. Leisure, you can negotiate that sucker. Now, I just added some here for some fun sakes. For the ladies in the room, just in case you didn't know that you spend 1,700 hours of your life shaving your legs, 7,000 hours shaping your hair, 1,200 hours removing your makeup, 1,000 hours moisturizing yourself, 720 hours tweezing your eyebrows, 480 hours painting your nails, 288 hours self-tanning of some sort. And all I just want to do is to speak on behalf of the male audience here. Please keep doing those things. Please keep spending that time. I just found it fun and fascinating, but we still want you to use your life to do those things. Yes. A lot of you in this room are self-employed. And you became self-employed because you didn't want to have a boss. And congratulations for getting and putting yourself in that position. But the reality is, you still have a boss. Just a really crappy one. One that is letting you get away with murder. One that is letting you get away with a lack of accountability, without producing results, taking time off, being distracted. And that boss is you. And maybe you need to boss yourself around a little bit more and a little bit better. Ask yourself the question, when you're doing something in your office, ask yourself, would I pay somebody my hourly rate to do what I'm doing right now? If your hourly rate is $125 an hour, ask, would I pay somebody $125 right now to do this for an hour? I'm going to pull out a $100 bill, a 20, and a 5. I'll pay you to do this for an hour. If their answer is no way, stop doing it. You can't afford to do it yourself. That's how you keep diminishing your ROI on your time. Instead, delegate everything anyone else can do at a lower rate. Free up every minute possible for you to do your vital functions. Your housework. Do you know you can hire somebody at $25 an hour? Pay them $40 an hour. If your time was worth $125 an hour, you can pay somebody to do your housework at $40 an hour and keep the differential. That's called economic arbitrage. For you to do $40 an hour work when your value is $125 an hour, you are losing money. It does not cost you money to hire people to do lower pay rate work on your behalf. If you take the same amount of time, apply it to your vital functions, and get your $125 of value, keep the $80, don't do the housework, have more joy in your life. Everything that you can hire out at a lower rate, you need to delegate out. But a lot of people have a hard time with delegation. And I submit this as a thing to consider if delegation is tough for you. Are you an egotistical, arrogant narcissist? Because you are if you can't delegate. If you can't delegate, that means that you're an egotistical, arrogant narcissist. Because delegation requires humility. A recognition that you are not the only competent person in your organization or family. And that's the big complaint. Well, nobody knows how to do this like I do. Come on. Really? Like you're the only person that could figure that out? Like that's just egotistical, right? So you don't want to hold that position. This was a big epiphany for Cassie, who was in one of our HPF groups. She is a mom of 3. She's got a fitness facility, and she was having a hard time delegating. And when I brought this up, she was like, that was a huge epiphany. I don't want to be an egotistical, arrogant narcissist. I don't want to believe that I'm the only competent person that can do this. I need to release this, and this was extremely liberating for her. And so I want to suggest this might be as well for you. So this is Ken Fisher. Here's how to go about the process of doing this, because a lot of you are going, but there's a lot of these things that got to get done. All right, let me show you how to do this. Here's the growth process for this. So Ken Fisher, he's a billionaire. He wrote this book, 10 Roads to Riches. And he said, look, when you first start your entrepreneurial endeavor, you'll have to do everything. You got to do the sales and marketing. You got to do the customer service. You got to do the accounting. You got to take out the trash. You got to do it all. He says, but what you want to do is to get things growing. Get enough sales and marketing going, and then become a quitter. Quit as many things as possible. Quit doing the janitorial. Get a little sales and marketing going. Quit doing the accounting. Get a little bit more sales and marketing going. Quit doing the customer service. And he says you want to quit yourself all the way out of a job where essentially you're not responsible for anything. On the accountability Manning chart, your name does not appear in any box, so that you are free to do your vital functions as the leader, as the CEO, which is going out and spotting A-level talent, onboarding them into a great culture, and thinking about the strategic direction of the organization. That's the only thing you should be doing as a CEO and as a leader. But you can't start there. You have to begin doing it all, maybe, and then start quitting as fast as possible as you go up the growth chain. So that's how you start and evolve in this process. And ultimately, you want to find people who play at what you find work. What I always find interesting about life is somebody loves to do everything,
There's a lot of things that I look at and I go, oh, that's awful. Excel spreadsheets, accounting, these numbers, I hate that. Who would love that? I wouldn't put that on my worst enemy. But there are some people who love it. They love the formulas. They love making the numbers work. They love the accounting. And it's like, awesome. Find people who play at the things you find work. That's what you're looking for, right? You want to become, somebody loves to do everything. You want to become a passion broker. So as you look at the landscape of things that need to get done, our housekeeper in our house, she loves doing housework. She loves it. She comes with a big smile on her face, and she absolutely loves it. I loathe it. I feel bad that she's got to clean my stuff. I do. I'm like, who would want to do this? She loves it. Fantastic. Great. You get this. I got this. Right? And look at all the areas of your life and find people who play at the things you find work, put them in place, and everybody is having a great time. And everything's getting done. You want to move from labor, doing it all. This is a big point. A lot of people miss this because they go, how do I do this? This is how you do it. You want to move from labor to leadership. You want to try to stop doing a lot of this stuff yourself and then end up finding people who play at this, putting them in a position, and all you got to do is lead. All you got to do is inspect what you expect and let them play at that role so that you are then freed up to focus on your vital functions, the things that contribute the most to the organization. Everything you do is keeping you from what you should be doing. My wife is the worst. She's not in the room, is she? No. She's the worst at this. She's so capable, it's her greatest constraint. She could do anything. She is gifted and talented at everything. And she's just like, I'll just do this. I'll just do this. And I say, if you do that, that means you can't do this. And for us, this is more important. But I could do this. It's like, no, that's not the point. We know you can. But stop doing it. Please. Hire and manage somebody and then lead them. So then it will extract you from that, and all these other amazing, wonderful things that we need done could get done. Right? You're all guilty of that. We're all guilty of doing the labor rather than moving into a position of leadership instead. So what's better than a few? If there's a few vital functions that could make the biggest difference, what's better than a few? One. Exactly. Let me introduce you to this guy. He'll actually be on the next cover of Success Magazine for a second time. This is Joel Osteen. Now, I don't see Joel Osteen as a televangelist, as some Christian spiritual leader. I see him as the CEO of a multi-hundred-million-dollar organization. So when I sat with his wife in their lovely home in Houston, the question I wanted to find out is, how do you manage all this? How do you captain this big, amazing enterprise? And he said, when I first took over from my father, he said, I was trying to do everything. I was doing weddings and funerals and baptisms, and I was editing the brochure. He says, I was editing the commercials that are bumpers on the TV program. I was adjusting the lights on the stage. And he said, the organization became stagnant, and it could only grow as much as my calendar could handle. And we became stagnant. And he said, something had to change. So I stepped back and I said, okay, what is the one thing that I do that makes the biggest contribution to the whole enterprise? What's the one thing? And he said, I figured out it's the 22 minutes on Sunday. That broadcast that then gets shot around the world, if that is great and excellent, it propels everything else. So I stopped doing everything else, and the only thing I focused on was that 22 minutes each week. So this is his literal plan. Wednesday, he spends the whole day just thinking and researching and making notes about what he wants to talk about on Sunday. Thursday, he writes out his sermon word for word. Friday, he spends the whole day, you can't interrupt him. He's got this basement room in his house, just memorizing it. He spends the whole day memorizing it. Saturday, he gives it twice with the cameras off to a private audience in his church. Sunday, lights, action, camera, bam. And I call Joel Osteen the best keynote speaker of our times, really, because the guy's got to do 22 brand new, fresh keynotes a year. And he does it from memory. And they're inspiring, and they're filled with stories and jokes, and it's fantastic. Because he figured out the one thing. And that's what he spends 90% of his week on. Monday he takes off, rest and recovery and revitalization. Tuesday, he does leadership, which means he goes in, checks the vitals, inspects what he expects, and he does any media that needs to be done. I've interviewed him twice, always on a Tuesday, because that's the only day he allocates for that. What's your one greatest activity? What's the one thing that you do that contributes the most to the whole enterprise of what you're trying to achieve? Write that sucker down and then plot, scheme, and strategize about how you can spend more, if not all your time, just doing that one thing. And life will change for you. So write down, what is your one vital function? You had 3 before, just circle the big one. Let me show you the guy who mastered this, and the world is better because of it. The late, great Steve Jobs. In the period between his Apple 1.0, Apple 2.0, went into the wilderness. It's called the wilderness years. That's all they give description of. And his time with Pixar. He made a great discovery. Because Pixar is a movie-producing studio, and they only produced one blockbuster movie a year. They were given all sorts of options and opportunities to do more, but they were disciplined. They only wanted to do one a year. And Steve observed that when you have this creative, talented group, all focused in on one thing, all this power and creativity focused on one thing, that's when you can create breakthrough, blockbuster outcomes. And every movie that they put out, blockbuster, blockbuster. And it stretched the bounds of what had been done in movie making before that. He took that lesson learned and applied it to Apple when he took back over. And you look at the lineage of Apple after Steve took back over, and it was just one big thing at a time. It was just the iPod was the only one new thing. Then it was just the iPhone. Then it was just the iPad. Then it was just retail. What's interesting is they had these rogue little departments, these secret little departments that people in Apple could not access, so that it didn't fracture the attention and focus to the core Apple group, so that they were all focused only and solely on one thing. And because the whole creative group was focused solely on one thing, not just creative, sales, marketing, business administration, one thing, that's how you create a breakthrough revolutionary product, focusing on one thing at a time. Now, he was such a disciplined, focused guy that even his own personal calendar, Steve would spend how much time per day focused on whatever was the number one priority of Apple at that moment? How much time? 3 hours a day. 3. He was running at the time 2, not 1, but $2 billion corporations. Do you know what the potential distractions are when you have a $1 billion company? Media, investors, staff, employees, liability, design, problems, fires, all the rest of that. And if Steve, running $2 billion companies, could isolate 3 hours on his calendar to focus on the number one priority, what the heck is our excuse? Truly, what's our excuse? So how do you do it? You're probably saying, well, how do I find the time to stay focused on the one or the few? Here's how. Let me give you the framework in which I've tried to figure out how to make this work. You want to bookend your day. There's only 2 parts of your day that you truly have total control over. It is when you just get out of bed, and it's just before you go to bed. Because we all know that in the middle is crazy making, right? What's the old adage? What's the best way to make God chuckle? Tell her your plan, or him your plan. Because in the middle are fire drills. We know. I mean, look, you can have great intentions, and you should. You should have your power blocks. You should chunk and group and all the rest of that. But look, most of the time, it's just going to get lit on fire. But there's 2 points of the day that you can control. And these are the days where you want to stuff in your most important priorities, your most important routines, your most important rituals. So I just want to give you the framework of mine, just to give you an example, okay? So I get up at 5:30. That was a difficult thing for me to train myself to do because I was one of those night owls, just crush it through the night, right? And getting up at 5:30 in the morning was just crazy. But here's what I realized, that you don't borrow from your sleep. You listen to Dr. Oz, he will tell you the most important thing you need for health, vitality, and longevity and high performance is sleep. Do not borrow from your sleep. Sleep needs to be sacred. But what you do is you time shift it. Now let me give you some amazing benefits to that. All of our human evils show up at night. All of our human greatness shows up in the morning. Think about it. At night is when we drink, eat things we shouldn't eat, watch things we shouldn't watch, troll on things that we shouldn't troll on. Like all of our worst behavior happens at night. Isn't that true? I had a buddy of mine who wanted to lose weight, and his number one strategy was going to bed earlier. Because if he just wasn't awake during the evening, then all his temptations wouldn't be at bay. And you know what? There's great wisdom to that. I swear. It totally has worked for him too. And for decades, nothing has worked. So you just time shift. And in the morning, how about that? The morning is awesome. Like the morning is when you do your reading. It's when some people pray or meditate. Maybe it's their place of spirituality. Maybe it's their exercise. Like all the best of ourselves happen in the morning. So if you just time shift yourself, go to bed earlier and get up earlier, I'm telling you, there's 2 pockets of time and behavior that just open up for you. It's incredible. So I get up at 5:30. The alarm goes off on my iPhone, and then I've got 9 minutes. I don't know why 9 minutes. Ask Steve Jobs why the snooze is 9 minutes, but it is. It's crazy to me too. And I just sit there and I think about my day ahead. I think about what I'm grateful for at the moment. I'm just calibrating. I'm not getting woo-woo on you here. I just think about things I'm grateful for, the people I'm going to meet, the impact I'd like to have, the way that I'd like to operate when I meet them. I just think about that during that 9 minutes. Then I get up, put the pot of coffee on. Yes, it's one of my vices. I do drink coffee. And my chiropractor friend was after me forever to do more stretching. He says, you're too tight. You've got to stretch. You can't weight train and not stretch. So I tried to do it before I worked out, do it in the middle, do it after. Nothing stuck. So I said, I got to figure out where to stick it in my bookends. Because if it's not in the bookend, it's probably not going to happen. Well, that's when it starts. When the coffee is on, I got 8 minutes until the pot is brewed. And I do this 8-minute little stretch routine that Dr. Oz taught me. Fantastic. And now it happens. I'll be traveling somewhere in some far distant land, get up blurry-eyed, put the coffee maker on in the room, and then find myself 4 minutes into it, and I realize, oh my God, I'm like stretching now. I finally wake up, and I'm 4 minutes into my routine. In other words, I engage in the activity unconsciously now. It has become a routine. It has become a ritual. It has become a habit. Then I read for 30 minutes. No more. I put the timer on my iPhone and I read something positive, something instructional for 30 minutes. As soon as it's off, I stop. Because look, if you let it bleed in the 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, then all of a sudden, the next day you go about it like, I can't afford that amount of time. But if it's only 30 minutes each time, you can do it. I calibrate, review my goals, think about what I need to do for that day, pick one of my 3 most valuable priorities for the day. I pick the most important one, and I do a 90-minute jam session right then. So that by the time 8 o'clock rolls around in the morning, I have tripled the productivity of the average Fortune 500 CEO. Just like that Army commercial, right? We do more by 9 a.m. than you've done all month long, right? Same thing here. And that's the best jam session because the world hasn't really awoken yet. They're not clamoring at you. Your brain's not going, I wonder who's trying to get at me right now. So there's like this peace and this calm first thing in the morning. It's an amazing time to do a jam session. Then the other half of the bookend, before I leave the office, I spend 10 minutes just planning for the following day. What are going to be the valuable priorities? What's my number one? What's the chunk? I work out in the evening. And then I do what's called a sprint prep. Like last night when I went home in between these 2 sessions, I pulled out this suit and ironed it and pressed the shirt. Last night, I set out my briefcase, put everything, put in a little extra things to eat that I needed. I put things in my trunk so that when I got up, all I had to do was, bam, get out the door. What I call sprint prep. The reason why people are late is they're doing this at the last minute. No. The night before determines whether you're going to be on time the next day. I journal for 5 minutes, anything I might be grateful for, capture any ahas that I had throughout the day, because I know I got a report on Friday. And then I read for 30 minutes something positive, something inspirational, because I know that your mind's going to munch on the last thing that it focused on. The worst thing in the world you could do is watch the news before you go to bed. or Breaking Bad. People who are good at bad. I keep using that example because I started to watch this. Somebody recommended it, so I started watching it. And I watched like 2 or 3 episodes, and then I realized in the middle of the night, I was thinking about things that I saw in that episode. I'm like, this makes me feel bad. George's like, well, why aren't you watching that anymore? I thought you liked that program. I said, but I didn't like the way it made me feel. I didn't like the things that it made me think about, right? And so I just stopped watching it. I'm not, overly dogmatic about that stuff. I see dramas and thrillers and all the rest of it, but that's fine. But I just didn't like the regular mind share that was taken from me. Ultimately, you want to make success a routine. You want to develop consistent rituals and rhythms and make success a routine. As John Maxwell said to me in an interview, the secret to your success is found in your daily routine. The secret to your success is found in your daily routine. What do you do by routine every single day? We look at your routine, we could see where you're sabotaging yourself, where you're going off course, where you're going off track. Here's the ultimate goal. Do fewer things. More often. And get better at them. Right there. The fundamental foundation of all success and greatness. Here's the big challenge that we're faced with in our human dilemma, okay? I had a friend of mine whose father made it to 100 years old. And I said, I'd really love to interview him. I'd really love to talk to him. Ask him before I meet with him to write down anything that he would consider to be what it takes to live a successful life. Because this guy was very wealthy, very well respected, very much admired, lived a very dynamic life. So when I showed up, I expected to get this tome, this 30 or 50 page sort of essay on how to live an extraordinary life. When I showed up, he had one piece of paper, and he handed it to me. Like 10, 12, 20 things on it. And so I read it, and I'm like, yeah. He said, look, you could hand that piece of paper to an 18-year-old. This is what unlocks the wisdom of the world. This unlocks the keys to success. This is it. Every single word I deliberated about, every word is profound. Every word is so meaningful, so important. I can't tell you how critical every word is. But you will only understand its meaning after you've taken the trip. And when you look back, you reread this piece of paper, and you're going to say, that's it. That's it. And so what I'm telling you here is that the fundamentals of extraordinary success, incredible greatness, is simpler than you think. It's easier than you think. Why you don't make it possible is because you make it more difficult and you make it more complex. 3 weeks ago, I was in Kansas City doing a talk for an aerospace company called Valiant Aero. The two guys behind it, they own a big equity firm. And this is the 11th company that they have bought and then sold. 2 weeks before I got there, they had sold it for $236 million. It was one of their lower transactions. Two amazing, wonderful, gracious guys. I mean, they continue to send me gifts. Really wonderful, gracious guys. And I asked them, we went to lunch before I did their talk on leadership, and I asked them, I said, so how do you guys do this? What's the formula? When you go into a company, what are you looking for to do this great turnaround in order to bring in all this extra value to ultimately create a new transaction? He says, our operational management plan is really simple. It's not that dynamic. It's not that complex. We're just really disciplined to stick to it. And that's what everybody doesn't do. We're just disciplined about sticking to it. And it separates them from everybody else. So, see these things on the board here? They don't look profound. But what I want to promise you is, they are. This is it. Wisdom of the world. Do fewer things, more often, and get better at them. And the world opens up. Possibilities explode and expand for you. Let's move into vital priorities. We've talked about vital functions, those important functions that determine your greatest success. Now let's figure out how do you figure what your vital priorities are. All right, so here's what this looks like. Isn't it interesting that a lion tamer, a very vulnerable human being, can tame this massive, powerful beast with a simple bar stool? How is that possible? The reason is that the lion sees the four legs of the bar stool as four predators coming at it simultaneously, and in the vision of four threats, it becomes passive. It becomes tamed. So we also suffer from what is called the lion syndrome as well. Too many choices creates paralysis. When you have too many priorities, you actually go into a state of paralysis. You become tamed. You become unproductive altogether. If you feel that you don't have enough time, it means you don't have clearly defined priorities. There is no such thing as not enough time. The great equalizer of the universe is time. We all get exactly the same amount of time. No race, creed, color, age, gender, geographical region gets more time than anybody else. We all get exactly the same. So there is no such thing as not enough time. There is just not clearly defined priorities. This great guy here, when we had him on the cover of Success Magazine, we had a client that wanted to hire him to speak at their conference. And they asked us to call, since we had this relationship with them now, and extend this invitation to speak at their conference. We don't like to use our relationships like that, but this client happens to be responsible for like 60,000 subscriptions to Success Magazine. So this one time, and one time only, we said we would call. So we call Richard's office, says, this company wants to hire you to speak. They'll pay you $100,000 for an hour if you'll speak at their conference. Richard's office flatly declines. Tell the client, he said no. They said, well, how about $250,000? Please call him back and offer him $250,000 to speak for an hour at our conference. Call back. Sir Richard's office flatly declines. Now this is becoming kind of an ego issue for them now. They're like, all right, we'll send a private plane, pick him up, bring him to our conference. When the plane lands and his foot hits the pavement at our conference, he will be back on that plane in under an hour, and we'll pay him $500,000 for that hour. Call Richard's office, $500,000 for an hour. Sir Richard declines. Now they say, just give us a number. What is it going to take? We'll pay whatever it takes. Call them. What does it take? They'll pay whatever you ask. And then his office says, Richard has 3 strategic priorities he's focused on right now. He will only allow us to allocate his calendar to something that significantly contributes to those 3 strategic priorities, and speaking for a fee is not one of them. Wow. That's called focus. I told a friend of mine this. I said, Richard just turned down $500,000 for an hour to speak at somebody's conference. They're like, well, of course, he's worth $4 billion. Of course he can turn down $500,000. I could never turn down $500,000 for an hour. And then I thought, yeah, that's why you're not Richard Branson. Because the dude started out like all of us. For some of us, he started out behind the line. Middle-class family, had dyslexia, started a student rag magazine that failed. It is not that he arrived in this place where he now only focuses on 3 strategic priorities. All along the way, that has been his discipline, which is why he's Richard Branson with 400 companies worth $4 billion personally. That's what's called strategic focus on your priorities. Jim Collins here said, if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have any. Just like too many choices creates paralysis. Too many priorities creates productivity paralysis. Here's the Buffett method. Let's see if you truly do have the chutzpah, the guts, to do as Buffett does. So this is his method. It's called the Buffett method. Number 1, write down all your priorities. Pour your brain onto a piece of paper. Everything that you think is a priority for you and your business. Just write it all down into a piece of paper. That's first step. Okay? You can do that. Number 2, narrow it down to the top three, the three most important priorities, okay? You could do that too. Now here's what separates Buffett from everybody else. Point number 3. Throw the rest of the list away. Yeah, yikes. Because everybody goes, yeah, these are my 3, and I'm just going to keep those here over to the side. So I'm going to give it a little love every once in a while. No, no, no. If you want to do the Buffett method, you isolate the 3, throw the rest of the list away. It doesn't exist anymore. It's not even taking up background mental bandwidth. Do you have the guts of Buffett? So, you're all probably asking, how do I only do a few vital priorities? Let me help you. Here's the deal. Yes is easy. Yes is easy, right? Yes, I'll go. Yes, I'll meet you. Yes, I'll take the call. Yes, I've got a minute. Yes, I'll go to the meeting. Yes, I'll meet you for drinks. Yes, we can go to dinner with that couple. Yes, yes, yes. That's easy. However, no is the master skill. No is the master skill of success. Don't take my word for it. Take Buffett's. So, I get a chance to spend some time with Buffett. I ask him what I think is the greatest question ever. Of all the things that you would attribute your great success to, what's the one thing that you would attribute your success to? Now, this is the Oracle of Omaha. Maybe one of the wisest, smartest financial gurus ever to live. I'm thinking I'm going to get this like thesis statement on finance and life and the rest of it. This was his answer. Here's a $50 billion answer. This is what unlocks the door to the kingdom where all the riches are inside. Here's his answer. I give it to you. For every 100 great opportunities that are brought to me, I say no 99 times. That's the one crucial, most important secret to your success. No, 99 out of 100 times. That's just not no to buying or investing in this company or this opportunity. That is no for any solicitation on his time or his attention. No, 99 out of 100 times. Let's just start with no and then convince me otherwise. And 1 out of 100 gets the green light. Here's another phenomenal achiever of our current lifespan, the great late Steve Jobs. I get a chance to spend some time, ask him the question that I thought was a great question. Of all the things that you and Apple has built, I mean, breakthrough, revolutionary products, what's the one thing you're most proud of? For you, the one thing you're most proud of. I thought that's a pretty cool question, right? Yeah? Here's his answer. I'm as proud of what we don't do as I am of what we do. And then he continued, deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what to do. It's true for companies, and it's true for people. Like I told you, wisdom seems simple, but it is profound. This is Mark Parker, the CEO of Nike. When he first took over Nike, he had a conversation with Steve Jobs. And in that conversation with Steve Jobs, he got a little bit of advice. Let me pass on the advice Steve Jobs gave to Mark Parker, the CEO of Nike.
You mentioned last night when we were having dinner that when you first got the job as CEO, you got a call from Steve Jobs and he offered you some advice.
Well, he didn't call to offer me advice, but so we had worked together on a Nike-Apple collaboration called Nike Plus. So we took what Apple knows, what Nike knows, and brought a new technology to the market. Anyway, long story short, he said, hey, congratulations, it's great, you're going to do a great job. I said, well, do you have any advice? And he said, no, you're great. And then there was a pause, and he goes, well, I do have some advice. He goes, Nike makes some of the best product in the world. I mean, product that you lust after, absolutely beautiful, stunning product. But you also make a lot of crap. He said, just get rid of the crappy stuff and focus on the good stuff. And then I expected a little pause and a laugh, but there was a pause but no laugh at the end. Yeah. And he was absolutely right. And in fact, that's one of my major focal points in terms of my priorities as a CEO and even as a designer when I was growing up at the company, is to edit. I mean, we have so many ideas. Nike is an idea factory.
My priority as a CEO is to edit. So the question for you is, what crappy stuff do you need to stop doing so that you can focus on the good stuff? Because the answer to the equation about how to accomplish more is not, in fact, you doing more. And in fact, the only way for you to do more, because all of you are doing all you can all day anyway, is to remove the crappy stuff first. Create big blocks of available time so that you can focus on the good stuff. This is, as you know, Kenneth Cole, and he kind of sums this whole thing up into one great sentence. Let me give it to you. He said, success has less to do with what we can get ourselves to do. Interesting. And more to do with what we can keep ourselves from doing that we shouldn't. Success has less to do with what we can get ourselves to do, more to do with what we can keep ourselves from doing what we shouldn't. Peter Drucker put it this way: there's nothing so useless as doing efficiently that which should not be done at all. And we spend so much time trying to do things efficiently. I'm going to change the icon colors of the, of what's on my desktop. I'm going to organize my apps, and all the rest of this. Things that we shouldn't even be doing at all, right? Jim Rohn put it this way: when in doubt, just say no. When you're in doubt, let's start with no. Don't let your mouth overload your back. Now, if that seems too harsh, then I give you the kindler, gentler Brian Tracy way. And that is, say no thank you. And then he gave me a great line about how to use this. He says, hey, I appreciate you thinking of me. I really do. Right now, I can't make it. If that changes, I'll let you know. Oh, which means what? Don't call me, I'll call you. But it also means that, hey, right now, I'm not sure if I'm available. I'm not sure if I can make it. But let's just say right now I can't make it. But if that changes, I'll call you. Oh, that's so refreshing. Even just articulating it there, it's like, let's start with no. And if that changes to a yes, I'll let you know. So what do you need to start saying no to? And to give you some context in which to think about this, I want you to look back at your calendar last week when you get home. And look at all the things that you did. And the one thing I want you to discover is how few appointments you actually had on your calendar. Yet you spent the whole week rushing and busy. How's that possible? That means you just showed up and just did this all day, right? But then think about how you spent your time and ask yourself, what should you have said no to? And if you clear those things from your calendar, you'd be like, oh my God, there's giant gaps of time where I could have just laid there comatose and had the same results. Then look at your calendar next week and ask yourself the question, what should I say no to? Look at your idea list. Look at your project list, look at your commitment list, look at your communication list, and then say, what should I start saying no to? One of the biggest areas of impact that you can find in your productivity and effectiveness is your ability to do what you want to do by reducing the commitments in your life. We are overcommitted, over-obligated, overtaxed. The best thing for you to do is to start reducing the commitments in your life. You don't need to be on that board. You don't need to show up for that event. You don't need to take that call. You don't need to volunteer here. There's so many things that you don't need to be friends with those people. You don't need to be involved with this club or organization. Start reducing the commitments in your life. Prune your life of all non-essentials. So my wife and I, we make a theme for each year when we're writing and designing our goals. And a couple of years ago, our theme was Go Lean. And then in every area of our life, we just went and focused on going lean. And that is, cut the stuff, cut the tasks, cut the storage. Go lean in your relationships. Go lean in your obligations. Go lean in your commitments. Everywhere. Go lean in your body. Everywhere in our life, the theme was go lean, go lean. Reduce all the non-essentials. This is John Gallardi here, who's won more games and coached more seasons than any other college football coach in the history of college football. On his exit interview, they asked him, if you could just give us one great key to your success, one summary of all that you've ever learned, what would it be? Here's his answer. The key to success? I eliminate the unnecessary. And I think almost everything is unnecessary. How is that when you find these people who have achieved these fantastic things and their answers are always like this? It's a clue, really. So focus on less to become more. Focus on less to become more. And that's the opposite of the way most of us are spending our lives. We're trying to do more to become more. And that's what's keeping you from becoming more altogether. Allow times to do nothing. Create gaps. As we talked about before, scheduling unproductive time so that you can become more productive. Time to just think. What's interesting here is that Bill Gates, every year, schedules what he calls think weeks. 2 weeks where he goes off, somewhere where he can't be contacted, sits alone and just thinks for 2 weeks. Bill Gates, this is when he was building Microsoft, one of the largest corporations in the history of humanity. And he would take 2 weeks to go off and just think. Just think for 2 weeks. Jack Welch would schedule an hour a day on his calendar, what he called looking out of the window time. There was a scheduled appointment on his calendar. We're talking about the CEO of GE. And it said looking out of the window time. Just time to think. Maybe you do too. I mean, if the CEO of GE can do it, if the CEO of Microsoft can do it, why can't we? So when do you say yes? If all you do is go around and say, no, 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 obviously that's not going to get you anywhere. So there's a time when you need to say yes. So let me give you the formula. I learned this from Derek Sievers, who wrote the Lean Startup, right? Fantastic. Here's when you say yes. When you can say, hell yeah, that sounds awesome. Do I want to be on that conference call? Well, hell yeah, that sounds great. Do I want to go to that meeting? Hell yeah, that sounds very fun and productive. See, this has been life-changing for me. Because every once in a while you struggle. Should I do that? Should I go? Do I obligate myself here? Do I? And I learned this when my wife, I have to tell this story again. So we have this place, Belly Up Tavern, that's not too far. They get all these acts, and she's like, you want to go and see this artist, Johnny Lang? So I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I look at the YouTube, and I'm like, I don't know. I said, okay, well, maybe I get some husband points here. So yeah, okay, I'll go. So I go. In the midst of the concert, to no fault of Johnny Lang, I'm sure there are people who love him. I mean, it's fine. In the middle of it, I'm going, why did I say yes? I hate this. I want to call a cab and leave. Now what kind of husband points am I going to get for that? So I just sit there in anguish for like 4 hours. It seems like an eternity this guy plays. It's like, come on already, right? So I realized then, I just should have said no. She would have went with her friends, had a blast, had a great time. She didn't care, actually, whether I was there or not. She wanted to go herself. So then, B.B. King's coming. And she says, do you want to go see B.B. King? Well, hell yeah. Yeah, I want to see B.B. King. See, there's a difference there between what you say hell yeah to and yeah, maybe, yeah, okay. And we say yeah, maybe, okay, when we really mean no. And that's what over-obligates ourselves. Do you want to go to dinner with this couple? If you can't say, hell yeah, love that couple, don't go. You ever done that? You're like, let's go to dinner with this couple. Like, okay. And then you're in the middle of it and you're going, why did I say yes to this? Right? Okay, so just say, if you can't say hell yeah, just say no. Say no to everything else. I have a CEO friend of mine, runs a very successful company, came up with this line to try to keep himself and his team focused. When somebody come in with a new great idea, he would respond to them by saying, what the focus are you talking about? What the focus are you talking about? Let's get back on track. We set our strategic plan. Let's stay focused. That's it. Here's a summary on this. Identify the essential and become excellent. at the essential and eliminate everything else, and then you have to defend it vigorously. The world, the environment, society will try to break down your barriers, and you have to defend it vigorously. At every corner, you've got to do 99 out of 100 no's so that you can stay focused on the things that matter. There's a worksheet in here for you to work through. This will be very enlightening for you. I highly encourage that you dog-ear this sucker, post-it, note it, what have you, come back to it. This will give you an exact step-by-step framework for what you need to stop, what you need to reduce, what you need to focus on.